right, good to see you, boys.
How are we, lads?
Good, thank you. Good to see you guys again.
How you going, Mick?
Going well, mate. Going well. Nice and relaxed over here.
Oh, of course.
Happy to be back for another week.
You feeling a bit lighter?
Definitely feeling a bit lighter, that's for sure.
That's good, good.
How'd your big race go the other week, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. Probably surprised myself a little bit. I didn't know what to expect and, headed out. It was a pretty brutal day. The humidity and the temperatures lifting over here now, being in September. But, threw myself in there, managed to come away with a second place overall. So it was a good day out.
Podium
Nice.
finish. Well done.
Nice, mate. Well done.
Sure. Not bad
Yeah,
for an
it
old
was
fella, hey?
Yeah.
Hanging in there, Jonesy, hanging in there.
And the
Good work,
whole
mate.
run done barefoot and breathing through the nose.
No, not quite. I wouldn't have been. The trail over here is it's a gnarly trail. There's it's fire trail for the first sort of 8 to 9 k's, and then it's rock hopping and all sorts of stuff for the majority. So I had me runners on for this one, but it was a good day out.
Yep. Yeah, cool.
Well, we're going to talk about supplements today. Last podcast was about medical testing and those kind of things. So supplementation leads into that, I suppose. You know, I would assume you would get your blood tests done, and then if there was any deficiencies, you would supplement. Obviously, we're not suggesting that we can supplement your way out of a bad diet. You want to have a good, healthy diet. And then obviously supplementation's just, as the word suggests, a supplement in addition to, optimizing what is a healthy diet. So
Yeah.
Interesting. Did you supplement at all, Mick, while you were training?
I did, and that's probably a good one to look into because probably one of the most underutilized supplements on the planet is magnesium. And so it's something that for many years now, it's a supplement that I've utilised sort of to assist my body in recovering from training, and also when I get restless legs and all that sort of thing, it helps me get to sleep a lot easier in the evenings. So I was just very conscious. I probably doubled the amount of magnesium I was taking, and then the other sort of thing, which I think we spoke about before in terms of the immune system. Interestingly, I really, really struggled with this program in terms of the number of times I found myself on the edge of getting sick. And I remember you bringing that up with me probably about 5 or 6 weeks ago, Jonesy, on another podcast. And ironically, after we sort of spoke about that, I headed into sort of the heavy phase of training. So I really had to up my vitamin C, a lot of those sort of immune boosting supplements through that period. I had to double my intake just to sort of keep my immune system on top of sort of getting those little colds and things like that we tend to get a lot more through the winter. So yeah, magnesium, vitamin C, very, very conscious of those two things in particular.
I reckon supplementation's a thing worthwhile considering for anyone who's interested in their health and fitness, because I sort of put my supplementation into different categories. I supplement for immunity. I supplement for my muscle development and maintenance. I supplement for my nervous system, probably looking further down the track as I get an older person, more cognitive sort of supplementation, and I supplement for my sleep. So I sort of think that anyone's considering supplementation is think about what you want to supplement for, and we'll obviously go through what we sort of supplement.
Do you think, like we talked about our medical and blood tests last time, do you think that you need to have some quantification of the things that you're deficient in?
Definitely.
I mean, you talk about, if you look at, your diet, everyone has the best intentions and has or tries to have a healthy diet, eats the best they can, but do we get everything we need from our diet?
Yeah, that's the interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people that say if you eat well, you don't need to supplement.
That's right, yeah.
And it's an interesting argument, but I think the food that we eat today versus the food that we might have eaten a couple of generations ago, we've proven now it contains less nutrients. There are less vitamins, minerals, etc. In our food. And Mickey was talking about magnesium, which is a perfect example. Our soils now are so deficient in magnesium, and our requirement for magnesium is quite high if you want to sort of have optimal wellness, that there's a really good argument that, yeah, you need to supplement with magnesium in order to, maintain a really healthy level. So while once we might have got it from food, now possibly we don't. And then you can further put on top of that the fact that now we live in a really, quite a toxic world.
Yeah.
Unless you are literally living out in the middle of the forest drinking pure water and, growing your own food, everyone has a level of toxicity that now we're dealing with where we didn't maybe have that 3, 4, 5 generations ago or to a much lesser extent. So I've sort of been down the rabbit hole with supplementation a little bit, and I went through a phase where I thought, well, you don't need to supplement to be well, but I actually believe now you probably do to some extent if you want to deal with all the burdens that sort of modern life gives to you, and you take into account the nutrient content of our food. So
I guess with
one.
overly intensively farming practices, we're depleting the soil of a lot of the vitamins.
Yeah, we're just
minerals,
turning over
nutrients.
the same patch of soil all the time, aren't we? And you look at what most conventional farmers are putting on it, and it's a very narrow range of things which will stimulate growth, but they're not replacing all those minerals and other sort of compounds.
The fruit and veg that we're getting these days is, studies have shown it's not as nutrient dense as it was 50 years ago.
Not at all.
I think Smitty's hit the nail on the head there. Those two factors is the nutrient density of our food, modern food, and also the pollutants and toxins that we absorb in modern life. And I think those two reasons alone stand supplementation in a good stead, for your health and well-being. And talking about toxins and that sort of thing, I mean, two of my supplements that I take are chlorella and spirulina, one of them in the evening and one of them at night. And I think I got those two suggestions from, I think it was Dr. Rhonda Patrick from an old Ben Greenfield podcast years and years ago. And I've been taking those supplements for, I reckon, 5 years. And the purpose of that is they act as a good antioxidant, removing heavy metals from my system, removing dead protein cells. And I have not had, and boosting immunity as well. And I reckon in 5 or 6 years, I don't reckon I've had a flu. I got COVID, but that's a bit of a different man-made, biological-made virus than a natural one. But I don't reckon I've had a cold or a sniffle during the time since I started this protocol of spirulina and chlorella. And I've also passed it on to my mum, and she's also noticed definite benefits in her immune health, whereas she's getting less colds and flus and stuff like that. So little things like that, can help remove toxins and things like that. And that's one that I vouch for.
So you definitely felt, obviously taking it for 5 years, you felt it's done something or something. It's done what it's intended to do.
Definitely, mate. Yeah, I do. The benefits of chlorella, for example, and anyone that doesn't know chlorella, it's a combination of single-celled green algae, hence the greenish colour. They're rich in proteins, vitamins and minerals, fibre, antioxidants, and the benefits they provide. And spirulina is also a very similar product. That's a dark blue green algae, and it's made of different species of bacteria that obtain their energy through photosynthesis. So again, a plant-based sort of, hence the green colour. Spirulina is very high in chlorophyll, carotenoids, beta-carotene, potassium, and things like that. So the benefits of those include, boosting your antibody counts, detoxification of heavy metals and things like that. And I reckon they've definitely helped.
What form do they come in, Rude? Do they come in a capsule form? Do they come in a powder? How are you taking those?
They can. You can get them in a powder form, and a lot of people put them in smoothies and stuff like that. I have them in a capsule form, just a hard tablet. without that little sort of, what's the little plastic capsules you get? You know, the ones that you can break in half?
Yeah.
They're not plastic. They're like, what are they made of? They're
Like
Oh, they make them
fibrous
from
veggie
a
stuff.
whole different.
Yeah,
they can be
could be
like rice,
plastic, could be-
cellulose, or all sorts of different things.
those sort of things. It's not one of those. They're just like a hard tablet.
Hmm.
But I definitely vouch for those.
How much do you guys look into the quality of your supplements, like where
Well,
they're coming from, what the capsule's made of,
That was
what sort of soil they're grown in?
That was
Because
gonna
that's
be
a
my next
rabbit
question,
hole.
isn't it?
Like, that's
Because
a big rabbit hole.
It
Like,
is, mate.
don't take bad supplements.
Yeah, well, it's a huge business, isn't it? The
Yeah.
vitamin,
It's a huge
mineral
business.
industry,
And a lot of people cut corners and they put shit in them, like they put
Yeah, well,
fillers and additives and.
largely unregulated.
It's
you know?
largely
How do you-
unregulated.
How do you know what you're getting? You do have to be vigilant.
I
about
just
the quality,
wonder how
yeah.
many people actually sort of read the label and try to look at the origin of like where their supplement is coming from, how it's made, what else is put in with it, like
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera. Because I think there can be definitely supplements that you can take which can almost like be more harm than good. And I reckon a really good example is fish oil,
Yeah, omega-3. Yeah.
omega-3. So I think there's a good argument that a lot of people might take omega-3 for its cardiovascular health. You break it down, your EPA into DHAs. So EPA more for cardiovascular and then DHA more for sort of neurological brain health. But if you go to the supermarket and you're buying a $10 bottle of or jar of, omega-3, that oil's probably rancid. It's probably going to do you more harm than good.
Oxidized, yeah.
Oxidized, all that
Yeah.
sort of stuff. Whereas if you want to buy a good form of omega-3, you're probably going to pay $100 for a jar.
Yeah.
Well, the jar needs to be dark so that the sunlight's not hitting it,
Absolutely.
oxidizing the oil inside.
Has the fish oil been distilled under nitrogen so that it hasn't had contact with oxygen, so therefore it's not oxidized?
Yeah.
There's a whole rabbit hole that you can go down, and then has it been purified and heavy metal tested? So you're going to get a fish that's really high in heavy metal. Like, it's just interesting that when you look at the quality of the supplements that you're taking, not what you're taking. Well, what you're taking is very important, but also where it's come from.
Yeah, definitely.
It's always,
Yeah. It's a big one.
It's interesting. Often the cost, some of the times you look at these things, the cost of this thing is more expensive. But like you're saying, it's probably because they batch test and they get certification and they're getting quality ingredients. And obviously, as we all know, you're paying for quality, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah, you get what you pay for.
That's
with
right. And
supplementation.
you can't get around that. You can't get cheap products and then want organic, batch tested, certified, all those kind of things for the cheap. So you need to probably, and not all the time cost determines
No, not always. No, that's true.
how good something is, but I would definitely be suggesting looking into, where your ingredients are coming from, the quality, are there tight manufacturing controls on those kind of things?
Yep.
I've seen some interesting videos, and I think maybe Smithy, you sent one about some of the supplements you took, with a little looks like iron filings that are magnetic. That's
This is a true story, and I'll tell this story very briefly. I saw this video going around on YouTube. My neighbour sent me, and I thought, this is a conspiracy video, And basically what it was, a guy puts a multivitamin sort of tablet, not a capsule, but a tablet, into water and dissolves it, and then puts a magnet to it, and there's all these metal filings in there, right? And I'm thinking, that's crap. My neighbour comes over a couple of days later, and he shows me a vitamin D capsule, which he bought from the supermarket, a cheap one. He dissolves this thing in water and he puts a magnet up to it, and there was so much metal in there, you've got no idea. It was bloody horrifying. I think I sent it to you guys on our
Oh,
Yeah, I
saw
saw
it.
that, yeah.
Crazy, yeah.
And I wouldn't believe it if I didn't actually see it with my own eyes. But I saw him bring over the jar of tablets. I saw him put it into the water. It was water from my tap into a glass jar, and we put a magnet up to it, and it was filled with iron shavings.
It looked, it's damning.
I would not believe it if I hadn't seen it with my own eyes.
Yeah.
But
They were quite significant in size too.
it wasn't like one or two little specks. It was like hundreds of slithers of long shards of metal.
It looked like a filing, if you filed down some metal, and it was like, the coiled spring kind of shape.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
Like, what does that do going through your intestinal tract?
Yeah.
Oh, that's just poison, man. It's just toxicity, isn't it, into your body?
So is
Absolutely.
that the manufacturer being cheap and putting iron or whatever they're putting in it, or is it part of the manufacturing process? It's on the plant floor pick up some, who knows? Like, how do you know? Like I said, it's unregulated. We can't really get.
And that was a vitamin D tablet.
Yeah,
Wow.
not a multivitamin,
Not even
with
a multi
iron
or anything like that. Just vitamin D.
something metallic in it.
So I mean, you can get vitamin D in drops, or obviously free from the sun.
Haven't there been some protein powders as well? Certain protein powders that are found to have heavy metals in them as well.
Oh, I've got no doubt. Yeah.
I heard.
Well, especially, I mean, if you think about sort of if you look at whey protein, where the cow's getting their feed from, if it's grain or, they're a feedlot cattle and you're getting whey protein from that's going to be no good.
Yeah.
You want your grass-fed, grass-finished whey protein if you can get it, and that's going to cost you a bit more, but so be it, right?
Yeah.
Mickey, being of your diet protocol, do you require?
We can't say the V word.
The vegan word. do you require any certain supplements to accompany that?
So I mean, obviously the obvious one is the vitamin B12, and ironically, as we've explained before and discussed on here, particularly with our kids, we were really, really conscious. As you guys know, we've now incorporated a little bit of fish and eggs into all of our sort of daily eating regime, weekly eating regime. But so we would have tested vitamin B12 every sort of 3 months. We would all get our bloods done every quarter, and we would just see where that was at. And interestingly, my B12 has always been sort of relatively high. And in terms of the measures that a general practitioner would assess, when I went to my naturopath and she looked at my B12 results, she actually said that her preference would be that my B12 was 3 times higher than what a GP, the range that a GP would actually think is healthy. So, this conversation sort of goes back to that whole point we explored last week, that the ranges of health in those results we can see in blood tests can sometimes be a little bit different when we then go to a naturopathic doctor or a naturopath. But B12 is one we've had to keep a really close eye on.
It's an interesting one, B12, isn't it? Because some people that follow a plant-based diet can maintain like really high levels of B12, and some really, really struggle even after supplementation. And it's obviously something to do with your biochemistry and probably your microbiome and the flora that you've got in your gut and all that sort of stuff. But it's a fascinating one. Like, some people almost get to the point where they really struggle to follow a plant-based diet just because of B12.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think some people also struggle with metabolization of supplementation as well, Matty.
Yeah.
That seems to be a really, really big issue for people. And it's not something I've dived headfirst into, but I know that, I think it was yourself, Matty, and you were mentioning earlier about the quality of supplementation. And I've just written a point down while you were discussing that, guys. And it's that, we quite often, and let's not shy away from the fact that globally at the moment, there's a lot of people under a lot of financial pressure. And so that's why we constantly revisit I think one of our main mission statements, which is encouraging people to take care of their own health. And a lot of the things we've brought up continuously have been free. There's things that these people can do for themselves. But what I'd really encourage people to think about when they're looking at the cost of supplementation, and something might be $50 or $60 more for a greater quality, is what's the cost of poor health?
Yep.
Okay. Quite often we don't consider these things until we're in a position where our health, maybe even our lives, are in real danger. And I think that that's something we're really passionate about, the four of us, is taking control of your health before it gets to a position where you're unhealthy. And so $50 or $60 to get a better quality of supplement isn't a great expense comparatively what it'll cost you if you end up in a dire situation with, any number of cancers, autoimmune diseases, or God knows what transcends.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to really explore those, look into the quality of supplementation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good point you make, mate, and we should really re-emphasise that there's a lot of people out there that can't afford supplementation, and we're very fortunate that we can. But I guess if you are considering something, a generic supplementation, then I guess if you're going to spend a little bit of money on one, just make sure it's a real good one.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, I think I'd suggest maybe. I mean, you don't just want expensive urine, do you? You want to go out and you want to supplement with a purpose. If you have high iron levels, you don't want to go out and supplement with iron. You know what I mean? So I think we did talk about those medical tests and consulting a doctor, getting those medical tests done, and then if you have some deficiencies, then add those into your diet, or then maybe supplement on top of that.
Yeah, that's a great call,
We talked
mate.
about.
Yeah, I reckon that's so important, doing those medical tests first.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't talk. We didn't talk too much about sort of gut microbiome testing and maybe some like an organic acid test where you are finding specifically what is wrong, or what you're deficient in, and then getting a protocol from your functional medicine doctor to follow. I mean, supplementation is going to help accelerate that deficiency and get you back to sort of a normal level. But you can probably do it with diet. I would have thought, but it's not shooting fish in a barrel. What's the other one? Sort of, a needle in a haystack. If you're I feel like I need this supplementation, and you go out and take it, it's probably not ideal. I would suggest using some of those blood tests we suggested last week. And I know it's difficult to get a gut microbiome test. There are tests out there, sort of $400-$500. What is a healthy gut microbiome? Who really knows? But some of these tests, they do a complete microbiome mapping. That measures some enzymes. Your fat blood content in your stool. So you do, poop into a little jar. They can tell you if you've got candida.
Yep.
I've
done one of those bad boys.
Helicobacter,
Yeah.
pylori kind of stuff
Yep.
with gastritis and ulcers and fungal infections.
Yep.
So if that's your issue, some of those things, then you can't sort of your glucose regulation and those bacterial overgrowths can cause you to be out of whack. So it may be something like that you need to get sort of tested and quantified to then get the right targeted supplementation.
Yeah, it's a tough one as well, because if you get those results back, and what we're really looking for, if you break that down into real simplistic terms, is we want like microbial diversity. We want like as many different species of good bacteria in our gut as we can have, and then we don't want to be overburdened with candida and parasites and stuff like that. But it's an interesting one, because if you go and do that, and I've done this, and then you get the results back, it opens up another can of worms, which is there's some people that will say, oh yeah, you can fix that, just take probiotics. Well, we're looking to have, hundreds or thousands of different strains of good bacteria in our gut. One of these might deliver you like as little as 1 up to maybe 12 strains. But really the way to fix it is to have a good diet.
Yeah.
You want to have a good, rich balance of like raw foods, fermented foods, prebiotic, probiotic type foods. You really fix it through diet. But having said that, it's one that's well worth doing. So, in that situation, do you maybe pony up for some better food?
Yeah.
Start really looking at your diet. Like I think there's a lot of examples where supplements are really good, and there's some supplements that I really love, but it all starts with diet.
Yeah,
and supplements are an addition to a good diet.
Like Mickey was saying before, you want to prioritize your health and make sure that you don't want to fall into bad health, and then you've got to then it's costing you to catch up. So if you are prioritizing your health and saying, okay, well, I'm going to spend a little bit more money on organic stuff, grass-fed, grass-finished meat, stuff from the farmer's market,
Yep.
stuff that has not been sprayed, those kind of things. Yeah, it's a little bit more expensive, but
Yep.
in the long run, that's probably a better option.
With the old saying, you can't supplement your way out of a bad diet or lifestyle.
Yeah, yeah,
If you don't take care of yourself
yeah,
and you've got a shit diet, doesn't matter how many supplements you take,
yeah.
Yeah.
a lot of it's just going to be expensive piss, like you say.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
The foundation needs to be a really good diet, and then we want to top it off with some targeted high quality supplements.
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah. It's interesting.
Just going on to back to the magnesium, and I haven't done any of those health tests, which I need to do because I've just sort of gone by, I don't know, what I've sort of wanted to achieve health wise, and also just responding to a few things that are happening in my health and in my body.
You can do your own research, right? I'm not suggesting you need to do those things, but if you're saying I'm feeling this way and you do your research and you've looked into it and then you take those things and you feel better, then
Well, an example of that is magnesium. So I used to suffer night cramps in my lower legs, my calves, and you'd wake up in the middle of the night just in excruciating pain with this calf muscle just like seized up behind your kneecap.
That's the worst.
It's just the worst feeling.
you don't want that.
And so I just did my own research and had a look at magnesium. And since I've been on the magnesium, those night cramps have gone. But then looking at research, it says that there's no evidence to support any magnesium efficacy with night cramps.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I
it
think
seems
that's
to have
rubbish.
worked for me. And then I wanted to know, and Smitty, you might be a bit more across this, is that the types of combinations with supplementations is important as well. So you'll often find that a mineral is accompanied with like a sort of like another compound which enables its absorption or enhances its absorption. So you've got chelates and cholates, absorbic acids and stuff like that. So I remember you mentioned in our sleep episode that you took magnesium threonate.
3 and 8, yep.
Threonate, yep.
Yep.
And that was a good one to enhance sleep and that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, mag 3 and 8 crosses the blood-brain barrier,
Yep.
which other forms of magnesium don't seem to do. So that's one of my favourites. Unfortunately, it's probably the most expensive form of magnesium.
Right.
But I do take it because I think it's
So
worthwhile.
Would that be considered the greatest absorptive magnesium? Because I'm just curious as to, am I wasting my money with the magnesium I'm taking that's got, magnesium oxide, magnesium from magnesium amino acid chelates, magnesium from manganese amino acid chelates,
So my favourite forms of magnesium, because this is a big rabbit hole which I've been down,
Yeah.
and different forms of magnesium will do different things and be absorbed in different ways. I like magnesium glycinate,
glycinate.
which I also take in combination with the 3 and 8,
I've got that here actually in
and,
my research.
and
Yeah.
magnesium malate,
Yep.
which is actually pretty hard to find, the mag malate. There's not many companies that do it.
Got ya.
But they'll all sort of be absorbed in different ways and do, I guess, slightly different things.
Yep.
But I prefer those as being pretty bioavailable and able to be absorbed.
Mate, you're spot on because the
Um,
research that I did showed that magnesium glycinate being bound with glycine is the most absorbable
Yeah.
form.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think malate is right up there as well.
Malate, yeah.
Malate you just don't come across. I had to search quite a bit to find a good form of mag malate that I was happy with.
Yep.
And I'll tell you one to avoid, and this is in general supplements, everywhere, is magnesium stearate.
Okay.
So magnesium stearate is like a manufacturing machinery lubricant almost. It sort of lubricates like machine presses. So a lot of supplements, and I'm not just talking about magnesium supplements, I'm talking about multivitamins, any kind of supplement that's made on any sort of machine press. It says mag stearate in it. I want to steerate away from that.
Yeah, right.
It's not, it's not a good one. It actually makes like a bit of a bio sludge or a biofilm which will accumulate in your gut and actually inhibit absorption of essential vitamins and nutrients.
Wow.
So cheaper supplements, you look at your high end supplement makers, you won't see mag stearate in any of their products because it's no good. And if you look at your cheap, grocery store piece of crap vitamins, they'll probably all have mag stearate in it. It's not a magnesium that we use for a function in our body. It's actually it's a byproduct of manufacturing, and you want to avoid it. And one of my rules for buying a supplement is that it doesn't contain mag stearate.
Got ya.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
just
good call.
a little side excursion there.
Yeah.
But magnesium is an interesting one, and like mag oxide can be good for constipation and stuff like that. If you take a lot of that, it'll loosen you
Yeah.
up more.
Yeah.
There's different uses for different types, but those ones I mentioned are my favourites.
Yep. Yeah. Thanks, mate. Good
I've
call.
actually got a funny story about Smitty and his magnesium research. I don't know if you'll remember this, but a couple of years ago when we were working together, I was struggling with cramping and that sort of thing, and we were talking about the magnesium I was on, and he said to me, Mickey, I'm gonna really help you out here. And he said, I'll bring something in tomorrow, and he said, I want you to try it. And you'll have to correct me here, Matty, if I've got this incorrect. But at one point you got some different magnesium compounded, didn't you?
Yeah, we used to get some from a compounding chemist. Yeah. Yep.
So Matty's gone home and he's come back to work with a little sandwich bag full of this compounded magnesium for me, and he said, this will obliterate any of the magnesium you've been taking. Go away and take it. So I was at work and I took this magnesium. I took a scoop straight away. I took this magnesium, and within half an hour, I had the sensation of needing to get to a toilet very, very quickly. It had just gone straight through me, this magnesium.
That quick?
I'd taken double the amount I was supposed to take. But it was so different in terms of the cramping I was getting, like post-training and all of that sort of stuff. Within a week and a half, I noticed a considerable difference in how my body was responding. And to me, it spoke volumes for that, again, that quality of supplementation. I've been taking this magnesium, double dosing magnesium morning and night for years and years and years, but just having this different type. And I think it did. I think it had the glycinate, the threonate, and it might have even had the magnesium oxide in it as well. I can't remember, Matty, but it was a completely different experience, and it was the same, still utilising the magnesium supplement.
Yeah, the great thing about magnesium is that really, if you take too much of it, you're just going to get that toilet reflex. You're going to obviously know about it because you're going to start having loose stools. Roo, just circling back to a question you mentioned before as well about if you can increase your absorption or something like that. You're saying if you can have other things. So choline citrate, if you take choline citrate in combination with magnesium, you can absorb more magnesium before you hit that sort of bowel tolerance.
Okay.
So it'll actually help you uptake it and use it. Yep. So I went through a phase where I was also taking choline citrate with magnesium, and I think it's worthwhile.
Do you know if choline citrate comes with certain combination?
I've never
magnesium?
come across it. No. Never ever come across it. Doesn't seem to be out there too much in the mainstream. Like I'm sure, some people are aware of it, but because magnesium, Mickey, I reckon you're spot on. Like I reckon it's one of the ones that there's very few supplements that I would say like almost everyone should take, and I'm not recommending people take it, but just in my opinion, I feel like magnesium is one of those universal ones that most people would benefit from.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think you can say that about that many supplements. But I love magnesium. Could do a whole bloody podcast on magnesium.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, thanks for that advice, mate. On the mag glycinate, I'm due to up my supply of magnesium. So
and the glycinate's quite cheap.
Yep. Yeah. Right. Cool.
Yep. Get a good quality one, but still quite cheap. Yeah.
Speaking of important subs, what about as blokes here, zinc? I don't know, is there a lot of importance? I mean, the research I did with zinc before I started taking it, and I really started taking it like hitting towards 50, I thought in the back of my mind more to do with men's health, so like prostate health, I don't know, whether testosterone or I don't really need sperm quality these days. Those days are over. But also reading, though, that supplementation of zinc has no benefit for those without a zinc deficiency. So, again, Jonesy, back to getting a test prior to spending your money on zinc, which I haven't done. I've foolishly just gone straight into getting a zinc supplement, and which is quite a hard mineral as well. So I'm not quite sure how much that builds or proliferates inside in the body. Accumulates, that's the word I was looking for. But it does have definite benefits, doesn't it? It can help with depression, men's health things, it can help with flu symptoms.
Immunity is a big one. Yeah.
Immunity, I read this clinical trial here. It said that there were 50 adults that took a zinc lozenge with about 13 milligrams of zinc or a placebo every 2 to 3 wakeful hours of developing cold symptoms, so just a general cold. Those that, compared to the placebo group, the zinc lozenge group reduced duration of their cold by 3 days. So there was evidence to support that zinc impacts the duration of a cold, but not the severity of the symptoms.
Yeah.
I found that pretty interesting.
Yeah, well, zinc fights viral replication. So, I mean, in the world of bloody COVID that we're living in, if you look at the studies for people that were supplemented with high-level zinc,
Yep.
they had significantly better outcomes.
Yeah,
And,
right.
and from that, colds and things like that, anything that's viral in nature, the zinc's going to help fight that.
Because that was part of the old COVID protocol.
Yeah, most of the good protocols have all
was-
got higher level
Your
zinc.
zinc, vitamin
Zinc.
D.
Yep.
Quercetin.
Yeah.
Had in
Yeah.
there.
Yep.
That seemed to be a good one.
Dare we say the I word? Or
Vitamin
the H
D.
word, ivermectin or...
Horse dewormer?
Yeah.
Well, that's not really a supplement, is it?
No,
No,
that's
it's
a
not.
medication.
It's a
So
medication.
You
beyond
have
that.
to get a prescription for that.
Yes.
So
yes.
let's not
Yeah.
go there.
Yep.
We've already been very explicit. Maddie's been potty mouth today, and we're gonna have to put an E on the episode. And
Most of the episodes have E's these days.
you were talking
yeah.
about man-made viruses, so we're getting.
I'm just passionate. I'm passionate. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Sorry to distract.
I think
us
the
there.
evidence is out there, isn't it? To
Yeah.
pretty much support that it's a man-made virus.
Look, I think everyone's got an opinion on it. And
Yeah.
I think all our listeners would either be for or against that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who
knows?
I listened somewhere, just going off track here, but the COVID, the SARS-CoV-1 virus, or the first SARS virus that we had, the new one, the SARS-CoV-2, which results in COVID, is the exact same viral DNA makeup, but in the new one, the SARS-CoV-2, there is a man-made juncture, or something's called a
Cleavage site.
which does not occur naturally.
Mm.
So take that as you will.
It's very compelling, isn't it? I've heard all that stuff as well.
Yeah,
And if that's true, then it's irrefutable. But
yeah.
how do you prove it
and
as
that-
an average Joe?
That, what's it called again? The
Cleavage site.
Cleavage
Yeah.
site is implanted, not naturally, but to make it a more contagious
Replicable virus. Yeah.
virus.
Mm.
Yeah. So interesting little side track. Take that as you will. But
Yeah.
back to supplementation.
Zinc, mate, is interesting for a number of reasons. Like you said, sort of men's health, sperm quality, obviously immunity is a big one. I'll tell you one about zinc, which I really love, is that zinc is actually quite good to help you detox heavy metal. And the reason why is that if you take higher level zinc, it'll stimulate production of a substance called metallothionein, which irreversibly binds heavy metals and helps you excrete them from your body.
Yeah, right.
So one of the main things that you need to have to get your body to produce more metallothionein is good level of zinc. So we have all these sort of narrow-sighted studies, and once you get enough zinc, that's enough, and whatever. I really think sometimes they're like a bit too narrow, and we look at all the broad things that it can possibly do.
Yep.
And if you have the right composition of amino acids and a few other things, then you can start doing more of these extra functions that your body can do when you've got these sort of like peak levels of supplementation.
Yep.
So zinc and magnesium, like you guys beat me to it, but they're probably two of my favorite ones for sort of like wellness and just being healthy.
Yeah. I read somewhere that a daily dose of zinc as a preventative measure is about 5 to 10 milligrams a day. I'm not quite sure where that fits. I mean, the tablets I've got of zinc total about 48 milligrams, and I'm having one of those a day. So that seems quite excessive if going by that preventative dose of 5 to 10 is accurate.
Yeah, I mean, I take between 30 and 50 every day.
Yeah, okay.
I've got two brands that I take. One's 50 and one's 30.
Yep.
Just depending on what I've got. I'd take either one of those. I think the only thing with zinc, you've got to watch your zinc-copper ratio.
Oh, yeah.
And you can get that tested if you want. Some zinc supplements come with a little bit of copper in them.
Yep.
I think the ratio is usually like 20 to 1 or something like that. Don't quote me on that. I have to relook at that. But yeah, I think it's good. And
yeah. I'd say it'd be one of those minerals also that suffers from poor mineral quality of our food.
Yeah. Yep.
But I mean, what you get zinc from eggs,
I mean,
eggs.
really high is like shellfish and stuff like that.
Okay.
But I mean, where are you getting your shellfish from? And are they full of heavy metal? And are they good quality? And all that sort of stuff. So, again, it's a whole rabbit hole of, what food you're eating, how high in it is.
Yep.
If you're eating eggs, well, what are they feeding the chickens that make the eggs?
Yep. Definitely.
This was a supplement, guys, that came up in our biopsychology unit last year, and they actually provided us with a 2011 study where they analysed a series of, well, they were participants within the study, but they were also psychology patients who had low levels of zinc in their blood analysis, and people with low levels of zinc were found to be low in GABA levels in the brain, GABA being the gamma aminobutyric acid levels. And people who had low levels of GABA were more susceptible to increase in anxiety. They were found to have greater levels of stress. They had greater levels of fear, greater levels of worry. And then when those same participants were then provided with a zinc supplementation, there was a reduction of up to 80% in anxiety levels across all participants in the study.
Wow.
So for mental health, and we've covered sort of all varieties of health, through our podcasts. But for mental health, this particular supplement is absolutely massive, I think.
Yeah, right. And because that supplement works well with the 5-HTP, the hydroxytryptophan, which Smitty recommended on our sleep podcast, because that's a precursor to serotonin, which can then also help with things like anxiety and mood regulation as well. So I've only just ordered my hydroxytryptophan, so thanks Smitty for that, and I'm really keen to give it a go to see how that influences my sleep, so that I'm not relying on the pure melatonin, which I was taking, which had those side effects that we mentioned in the sleep podcast.
I think I've cursed myself with that. I haven't slept well since we did the sleep podcast. So I'm going to need a supplement, I think.
Man,
Yeah.
I reckon I've done the opposite. Since that sleep podcast, I've been sleeping really well because I've been practicing all these behaviours that we talked about. So getting up and seeing the sun and seeing the sun setting the sky. Yeah. But I've also done, and we mentioned our mate from work that we know who invested in those little nasal clips called Mute.
Yeah.
And I've tried those out. And so I'm up to my 6th or 7th night on them. And it's like a little clip that goes into your nostrils, and it naturally opens itself.
I wish the listeners could see that.
Naturally opens itself up inside your nose and creates an open air passage. And man,
So you just get them from the chemist?
Yeah, and
okay.
$17 gives you a trial pack, and so that in that trial pack are 3 different sizes: large, medium, and small.
From
and
that
look at the
last
size of
you
my
might
beak.
have
I've gone
needed a
straight to
large one for
large. It's quite a spongy sort of looking nose. It's been broken a couple of times, but I reckon there's some deviated septum in there and a bit of sinus issues and polyps and stuff. But this thing opens up your nasal passages, and it just creates a clear airway through your nose. And I've found my sleep, since I've been wearing them, has been so much better.
I'm going to get some of them.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Mate, for $17 at the chemist, over the counter.
Yeah.
And then once you know your size, then you go back and you get a packet of, I think it's a pack of 3 that you get, and it's $30 for 3, but each one is supposed to last 10 days. They do not disintegrate, but their integrity does diminish
Plastic.
the more you use them. They are plastic.
Up your nose.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
There's no free lunch, is there? Because the
No,
alternative is
no.
those stickers, and then you sort of got adhesive on your nose, and they're made of some sort of plasticky compound as well. And
yeah,
You
so
can't win.
can't win. No.
Yeah, but for those that are suffering with sleep, give it a go at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Mickey, I'm super interested in your comments around zinc and mental health. And there seems to be like a small but growing movement now of psychologists and psychiatrists who are looking more and more into like nutrient deficiencies and like heavy metal overload and parasitic stuff, and its interplay with like mental health. And it seems to be like a growing area, and it seems to make a lot of sense. Like if your brain or your body doesn't have all the ingredients that it needs to obviously make healthy levels of neurotransmitters and things like that, seems to be that could be like a pretty big cause of mental health. Do you sort of subscribe to that on some level?
100%. I think this whole gut-brain interaction and the study and greater community awareness in the last decade has really started to gather steam, Matty. I think that, you know, I'll call it old psychology, probably, you know, the generation prior to that, really focused more on diagnosis, direction through redirection of health through pharmaceuticals, and that was the way forward. That was the way back to health. And I think that more and more people immersed in new psychology are more conscious of this more holistic approach to health. To exploring, you know, all of the things we've spoken about: nutrition, exercise, supplementation, all of these things, you know, looking at health in that more holistic frame, rather than just simply making a diagnosis based on symptomology. You know, we're really dissecting someone's health now and going, right, you know, this is the origin, that could be potentially impacted by X, Y, and Z. If we make, you know, micro improvements there, then we might not need to put someone on these, you know, quite harsh pharmaceuticals sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I think it's getting. I just feel that people are waking up to the fact that they can actually have a really positive impact on their own health, and I think that the more that we can, you know, direct conversation in that way, I think it's good for humanity.
Yeah, 100%. It's wouldn't it be good if in our health system now, like you can go to the doctor now if you're sick and they'll prescribe you a pharmaceutical, which they'll happily prescribe you for the rest of your life. Wouldn't it be amazing if we lived in a health system that valued wellness, and you could go to your doctor and get some blood tests, like we spoke about last week, to identify some deficiencies, and they would prescribe you some vitamins to stop you getting sick? Imagine a world like that. The financial impact and the reduction in burden on our healthcare system would be amazing. Like,
yeah, but then you'd get people living too long, Smitty, and you can't have that.
Can't have people being well and happy and
overpopulating the world.
living, you know, really, really great, fulfilled lives.
Yeah, and then there'd be no money in the whole medical pharmaceutical system.
Sounds really cynical, doesn't it? But
it
I mean,
does.
it's
Yeah, but mate, Emeki, is there much study in the way of toxicology in regards to mental health? You know, like what sort of toxins are creating sort of certain mental health conditions and stuff like that?
Yeah, there is. I mean, look, it's a couple of years ago now for me, but my biopsychology unit was like a bloody the 6 months was like a bloody medical degree, and it was, you know, for me it was learning very fast. It was stuff that, to be honest, at that point in time, I had an awareness of, but I hadn't sort of deep dived into. But certainly, I think you know, the impacts of toxins that are in, you know, Maddie touched on it briefly earlier, the impact of, you know, chemicals and toxins, and, you know, we're becoming more conscious now of things like plastics and things in our water, you know, and making sure we're drinking quality water sources, you know, people's diets in terms of the amount of heavy metals, you know, all of these things have an impact on the way that the body stays in homeostasis. And so I think a lot of the supplementation we've touched on today is beneficial in terms of elevating health, but it's also, you know, we've touched on some supplements today which also can absorb things like heavy metals and then eradicate them out of the body, which is really important.
Yeah, and that I'd love to do a podcast on those, because I have just gone a little bit, well, not crazy, but just really interested in noticing all the chemicals and those toxins that are in our everyday goods. So like toothpaste, deodorants, shampoos, soaps, and all that sort of stuff. I'd love to just do a discussion on that. I've just got to the point of buying some fluoride-free toothpaste, and I did the tap water test that you mentioned, Jonesy. I think we might have discussed this when on our Presidents of the World one, when Mickey recommended everyone just like drink water, and we talked about the quality of water, and you said that I was Smitty that said that one, and you mentioned, Jonesy, that you tested your tap water with your pool chlorine tablets.
Yeah.
So I went home and did the same, and there my tap water appeared up red with the chlorine tablets, like my pool water.
Like high.
Yeah, quite high.
Not even low.
But my filtered, because we have a filtered water jug, which we have to replace the filter quite often, that had nothing in it.
Yeah.
So I was so happy that
Awesome.
at least my family, my kids aren't consuming chlorine in their drinking water.
Yeah.
That really blew me away.
It's crazy, hey?
Yeah. And then
I don't know what made me think to
you
do
got
that,
fluoride in there as well, which obviously the chlorine tester doesn't test for, but you got fluoride in that water. God knows what else is in there.
The one I wanted to talk about was vitamin D. I wanted to ask you guys about vitamin D and chat about that one. I thought that's a fairly big one, especially with the COVID pandemic. Was one of the ones that you can type into PubMed, wherever you get your studies from. There's a lot of studies, evidence regarding vitamin D and the risk and severity of COVID, sort of having low levels of vitamin D was very correlative to having severe outcomes of COVID. We've just sort of come out of our winter, and I would think maybe where we are located throughout our summertime, we're going to get enough vitamin D to carry us through the winter time. It's probably ramping up again now to get some good vitamin D levels, but I think supplementing with a bit of vitamin D in those climates that you don't get a lot of sun, especially throughout the summer months and then winter, and not just COVID, obviously, but it's very good.
It's a broad-based vitamin, isn't it?
Yeah.
It looks after a lot of things: immunity, mental well-being.
Thanks for jumping in there.
Yeah, It just made me think, though: is it worth maybe supplementing with vitamin D just in winter?
Yeah,
I mean, in a
think
climate like ours, in summertime, and there's plenty of sun around, you're getting absorbing plenty of vitamin D.
Yeah, I would have thought so. You would if having low vitamin D is causing you to get severe COVID illness, I would assume that vitamin D would help with all kinds of viral infections, colds, flus, etc. So if your vitamin D is low, I would assume, and I could probably type that into PubMed and find that out too, but that seems to be a good one to supplement with.
Yeah. Well, in our last episode that we talked about those health tests, vitamin D was one of the top 5 tests to get, wasn't it?
Yep, definitely.
Yeah.
Vitamin D deficiency, Jonesy, is actually one of the leading causes of osteoporosis. So, particularly, I think this is an important one because as globally, what we're experiencing at the moment is a trend towards an older age demographic, and bone health in particular, and osteoporosis, fractures of bones, loss of bone density and things like that is something that becomes increasingly important as we get older. So that supplementation, if as we get older we're spending less time in the sun, I think is really, really important.
What about for the bodybuilders out there, or the muscle gainers out there? I mean, what supplements do you take, Jonesy, with regards, because you exercise a fair bit?
I don't do anything anymore.
No.
I talked about creatine previously and hair loss, and I just have stopped taking that one.
Yeah, the conjecture's out on that though, isn't it? There's no direct link between creatine and hair loss, but
it's
said
more
that
the increase of testosterone, which potentially then leads to hair loss.
Yep.
But in the end, I found it was doing more harm than good.
Oh,
just
really?
in general, everything. Well, not harm, but I was taking a few supplements there, especially sort of during that COVID time. I was taking a vitamin D, a quercetin, glutathione, and an NAC. So I was getting severe reflux. I think it was from too many supplements.
Possibly, and maybe creatine was reacting with some of them, because I know there's even evidence to show it even mixes badly with coffee. So you don't,
Oh, right.
you're not supposed to have your creatine straight after your coffee.
I often mixed it in my coffee.
There you go. But mate,
Yeah.
I've given away like protein shakes and stuff like that.
I haven't had whey protein for years.
I prefer to get my protein from food.
Yeah.
And the only other sort of muscle maintenance things I take, I definitely take creatine. I'm a big believer of that.
Yeah.
And my essential amino acids.
It's working for your hairline, so
Yeah, well, I'm not losing hair. Well,
Yeah.
not that I can really. Well,
No,
it
you're
is a
pretty-
little,
going pretty
little
well.
bit, but I think that's just age.
yeah.
But mate, creatine is I rate it. And the combination with the essential aminos, I've got limitless energy.
Yeah.
My workouts, I'm still at 50, still pushing pretty strenuous workouts
Yeah.
out, and I put that down to those sups.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've got a bag of creatine at home, 4 kilos worth you can have.
4 kilos.
No, I don't know.
so the
It's a big one, but you can have
recommended dose is about 3 to 5 grams a day,
Yeah.
which is like
Talk about
a
preloading
teaspoon.
too, don't they? You know, for the
teaspoon.
first week, you have 20 grams or something, isn't it?
Yeah, you
for a
can
week
do
and-
that,
yeah.
or just build it up over time
Yeah.
on a small dosage a day. But definitely increase in strength and power during exercise is a benefit of it.
Yeah.
Increase in lean muscle mass when used in conjunction with resistance training is a benefit of it.
I definitely found using it that during my fasted period, because I like to do a fasted workout in the morning, if I was feeling a bit low on energy, I would have some creatine and it would
Yep.
give it, it's like a bit of an energy boost.
Yeah, I do try
Helps
to
with
take
the
it with
fast.
food though. I don't have it on an empty stomach.
Oh,
I'll
right.
try to have it with my pre-workout meal.
Yeah.
And if I'll try to have it with something in my stomach. They reckon there's
Is there
also a
any
lot
reason for that, or is it
No, I just didn't want it to be an upsetting
sitting in there?
sitting in there sort of thing. And I have it in a powder form as well, so
Yeah.
I make sure it's well diluted in my water.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a few myths surrounding it as well. Definitely not associated with cancer. There's no evidence to support that. It does not increase your testosterone levels. That's a common myth associated with creatine. But also the kidneys is a big one. People sort of have this conception that regular creatine usage can have a detrimental effect on your kidneys. But most of the evidence supports if you do have an existing kidney condition, then that's when creatine can be a problem. But even then, it can still be okay. You just need to really manage and be aware of your doses. Healthy kidneys, long-term creatine use is safe. The kidneys create creatinine, which is a byproduct of creatine. And so if your kidneys aren't working as well, going back to our health tests, you can get tested for creatinine. And if you have a high levels of creatinine, then that's obviously indicating some poor kidney function, which you then might need to reassess your usage of creatine. But other than that, there's a lot more benefits to it. And obviously not saying that you should take it, but that's just one thing that's worked for me.
Do you reckon, do you cycle it, Roo?
I do.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's quite important to cycle creatine, isn't it?
Yeah. Mate, that'll just be when I'm in between exercise programs, when I'm having a break. I'll just have a break from it. Or if we go on holidays, I'll just leave the creatine at home. But definitely keep my essential aminos up. The essential aminos are just those 9 essential amino acids that your body
Beautiful.
can't produce.
Yep.
And so you need to ingest either with food or with supplementation.
Yep.
So the ones that I take, I get 8 out of my 9 essential aminos. And they're all free form, which means they're not bound with anything, so they're not competing with other nutrients to be absorbed. So I'm getting a good and the list of those is like you got L-histidine, L-isoleucine, L-lysine, methionine. That's the one. I often get stuck on there. And here's a big one: phenylalanine. and threonine, and a lot of those have growth and repair of damaged cells, increasing protein utilization and fatty acid metabolism, increasing glucose transportation, increasing your immune system effectiveness, Yeah, there's a lot of benefits that each of those little amino acids have. Production of neurotransmitters, here we go again.
Epinephrine?
Norepinephrine, yeah.
Norepinephrine. Noradrenaline. We're in Australia, mate.
Yeah, so that was one that I take, and I'm a big believer on.
Mate, I reckon that is a much better way of doing it than taking either like branched chain aminos or just taking like a whey protein isolate. I think like essential aminos is where it's at.
Yeah.
Because they're the building blocks for everything, right? Like it's not just a bodybuilding thing.
Yeah.
Everything in your body, most of our bodily structures in terms of our cellular stuff is made of like, proteins, amino acids.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, get your essential aminos. We need them. That's why they're essential, because we can't make them.
Yep.
We've got heaps of other amino acids in our body which we can make, but we can't make those 9. So
yeah,
I think that's solid. And I think Ben Greenfield's a big believer in that. And I tend to agree with him on that.
Maybe that's where I got it from, mate, because I've been taking those for a lot of years now. It seems to be keeping me in good shape. And
it's just going to ensure you don't have a deficiency. Like maybe your diet covers 7 out of the 9 of them really well, but maybe there's 2 you don't, and you really do need them. They're essential.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's solid if you're going to take protein.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mick, do you take any like muscle maintenance or muscle development or anything like that for your training?
No, I was the same as Jonesy, mate. I took the creatine before, and then I sort of came off it. It's one that I'm sort of looking into at the moment. Funnily enough, those amino acids, the chain of amino acids, are something that I'm looking into again at the moment as well. It's just about finding, I guess, a quality one. So that's going to take a bit of time.
Yeah, mate. I can send you the one that I take. It's all vegan and organic. All that sort of with no sort of additives to them or anything like that. So I can flick you the details of that one that I take. I'll just get that from iHerb. And it's
That'd be awesome, mate.
It's not expensive.
That'd be awesome.
Very good.
Any others? Any closing remarks?
I got a couple, but I'll let you guys go first.
No, you go for it, mate.
I'm all good, yeah.
I love psyllium husks.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
So psyllium's good for a range of reasons. So it's a source of soluble fibre. So a lot of people's diet can be deficient in fibre, so it can be good from that angle and just good from like keeping you regular. But I like it because it also binds sort of fat and helps you excrete it. So psyllium can decrease your cholesterol level by 20 to 30%.
Is that right?
Yeah. So I think it's just really good.
Do you want that?
Well, not necessarily, but say, for example, you had high cholesterol, I'd certainly try psyllium before I tried statin.
Yeah.
And I think the efficacy can be similar. But fibre is really important. And it's also going to sort of feed some of the microbiome in our body. It's going to keep us quite regular. There's also an argument that it might bind some toxins and things like that. And I think cholesterol is like anything else. Like you've got your healthy level. I don't think we need like more than what's healthy. And I eat a very high fat diet. So I actually have noticed in my regular cholesterol tests that when I have been consistently taking psyllium husks for a few months leading up, my cholesterol will legitimately be like 1 or 2 whole points lower than what it is. So I'm definitely not worried that I don't get enough good fats. I'm not worried about having high cholesterol, but I don't think it's detrimental if it's not super high either. So I just think overall it's a massively inexpensive supplement. Like I buy a 5 kilo bag of organic psyllium, which would probably last me like...
That's a lot of regularity.
Oh man, like a tablespoon a day in water.
Yeah.
I just eat it. You can buy capsules and stuff like that, which contain psyllium, and they're really expensive. But I just buy organic psyllium husks. It's horrible.
Yeah.
I get like a big spoon of it, and I eat it, and I wash it down with heaps of water, and you get stuck in your gums and in your teeth and stuff like that. But I think it's really good, and it's super, super cheap. Like, I mean, it probably costs me like a couple of cents a day to have it.
Yeah, right. And I guess anyone could chuck them into a smoothie or
chuck it into a smoothie, chuck it into your food, sprinkle it on your food.
Yep.
You know, whatever you want to do. So there's a range of ways to do it. I just do it with a bit of water because that's the way I've always done it, and I'm used to it now. It sort of grossed me out a bit for the first sort of little while, but it's something that it's just part of a routine now.
Yeah.
Which is
And I guess
which is
something
good.
keeping you regular is reducing inflammation as well in your whole colon and
Yeah, I think fibre is really important for
Yep.
gut health.
Yep.
Like you say, health of your intestinal tract and things like that.
Yep.
So especially sometimes if you have a high fat diet, sometimes fibre can be a little bit harder to get.
Yeah.
And tons of people don't meet their RDI for fibre, like tons and tons. Psyllium is essentially all fibre, so you
Yep.
have 1 or 2 tablespoons of that a day. It's gonna feed your microbiome. It's a bit of a sort of a prebiotic type thing. It's going to give you a good clean out, and if it binds a bit of excess fat on the way out in terms of cholesterol and stuff like that, I think that can potentially be beneficial.
Yeah.
And it's just so bloody cheap. I don't see any reason
Yeah.
not to. I don't think there's too much of a downside to it. So that's one I like because it's cheap and it's natural.
Yep.
And my other one is sprouting broccoli seeds.
Oh yeah,
If
you
you guys
mentioned this
have
one in
come
one
across
of our
that.
earlier podcasts.
Yeah, love it. Full
Yeah.
of sulforaphane, which is really important detox molecule, which will stimulate our NRF2 pathway, which is a protective pathway, which will upregulate glutathione and things like that. I just take that in preference to taking actual glutathione because it's cheap and it's natural.
Yeah.
So, and broccoli sprouts are really tasty. So again, I buy a bag of organic broccoli seeds, put them in a mason jar with a lid, which is like a little sort of mesh sieve thing on top, which lets the water out.
Yeah.
So you moisten them a couple of times a day. Within sort of 3 or 4 days, they're starting to sprout and they're ready to eat in sort of like 5 to 7.
So we're talking about things like alfalfa sprouts. Are they sort of like that?
They're exactly like that.
Right.
They look extremely similar.
Are they more nutrient dense than alfalfa sprouts?
They just got tons of sulforaphane, which is
Right.
this thing you get from cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and stuff.
Okay.
But you can take a sulforaphane supplement, super expensive,
Is
like maybe $100 for a jar, or I can buy like $10 worth of organic broccoli sprouts, which will last me for ages. And I'm actually eating a natural plant-based product, which is also full of sulforaphane.
How do you say that word?
Sulforaphane.
Because I'm not really big on these science words. Sulfurafane.
So it's a sulfur-based, like a lot of our detox stuff is sulfur-based. So sulforaphane. There's some really interesting stuff on it. I actually came across sulforaphane a few years ago, again from Rhonda Patrick doing a podcast with Joe Rogan.
Oh yeah.
It's just really good for detoxifying if you have some toxic exposure.
Yeah.
Sulforaphane will stimulate those pathways and really help with that.
Okay.
And it's just so inexpensive. Like I'm a really big fan of inexpensive sort of like food-based supplementation as much as I can be.
Yeah.
Magnesium and zinc being probably a couple that we spoke about, which I do think are worth supplementing with, along with fish oil. But I think it's super worthwhile, super cheap. It's a food.
Yeah.
It's real tasty.
So
really
those
nice.
two you've just mentioned are more like foods as opposed to pills or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And do you supplement with fish oil?
I do. I went for a while. I was eating tons and tons of tinned mackerel.
Yep.
Because it's really high in EPA and DHA.
Yep.
And I worked out that if I had a tin of mackerel every single day, I could get like something like 1,000 milligrams of my omega-3s, which was sufficient for me.
Yep.
Then bloody COVID hit, and the brand of mackerel that I liked I couldn't get for ages,
Oh,
and it
okay.
hasn't actually come back yet. I don't
So
know, it must be a worldwide mackerel shortage or
Do
something.
sardines provide the same as mackerel?
Mackerel was slightly higher, but sardines are real good as well.
Yeah, right.
And I like my tinned sardines.
Yeah.
I find them quite tasty. And the advantage of those is like with your small fish, so sardines, mackerel, anchovies, they're not very high in mercury, which is the downside of fish.
Got ya. Yeah.
But I'm back to taking my expensive omega-3 supplement at the moment.
Yeah.
Just because I've literally had supply issues with getting my
right.
getting my preferred brands of
Mackerel.
mackerel and sardines.
And are they just flat out raw mackerel? Or are
yeah,
they,
I love them.
or
Yeah,
they
they're
got-
in oil. They're in olive oil.
Yeah, nice.
So tons of them are in bloody seed oils, and they do all sorts of trickery. And some of them say with olive oil, but then you look at the ingredients and it's like 5% olive oil and 95% bloody, some sort of shit oil.
Yeah, right.
But there are a few brands that are just 100% olive oil.
Yeah.
Or you can get them in spring water. I prefer the olive oil ones.
Yeah.
But that's the main reason that I stopped, is because all the crappy brands that I didn't like with the seed oils in were still available, and my good one that I liked that had the olive oil, I couldn't get it, so
Yeah, right.
I stopped. and I'm back on the supplement.
Does mackerel have the breath the breath effects as well, like sardines
Oh,
do?
it would do, yeah. It's my missus runs a mile when I'm on the mackerel.
When you crack open a can of sardines, people start running.
Oh yeah,
and the missus don't want to give you a kiss.
It's not a social fish.
No.
But
no, good
food-based
suggestions
stuff's
there, mate.
not too bad.
I'll have a look at that sulforaphase.
Sulforaphane. Yep.
Sulforaphane.
Yeah. It's good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Anything else, Mick, that you sup with?
No, I think we've pretty much covered everything off there, mate.
Yeah.
Got most supplements under the sun.
Yeah. Well, I guess any supplementation discussions worth a disclaimer. We're not medically qualified or anything like that, are we, to offer medical advice? These are just things that have worked for us, as pretty much every discussion we have is things that have worked for us as blokes interested in health and well-being and fitness.
Based on some quantification, I guess. Go to the doctor.
Exactly.
Get some medical tests done. If you're lacking in something, it might be worth supplementing with.
Tell him to prescribe you some vitamins. See what he says.
Yeah.
Or she. He or she.
Yeah. But this research.
Go, Mick. I think as a part of that disclaimer, Roo, I think one thing that we've always been pretty upfront about is people who are going to most connect with our podcast are people who are looking for alternatives that they can help themselves. They're not looking to treat, potential symptoms they might have, would you say, in the normal way, which is, go into your doctor, you might have some reflux or something like that, and just get put on some sort of pharmaceutical. All of the suggestions in general, I think, that we're going to come up with are going to be, almost free or relatively as inexpensive as possible for people to take some self-responsibility and look to enhance their own health. And I think that's important for us to acknowledge as well.
Definitely, mate. And the information is at your fingertips. You just need to do some research, sit down, have a look at some stuff, try to find not the first thing that pops up on Google, but just try to find some reputable
DuckDuckGo.
Yeah. Or anything on Brave. Brave's a good search engine. But any reputable research done or any papers. I mean, Jonesy, you mentioned a site earlier. PubMed. Anything that, just do your own research. And then doing the research on these sups here really reinforced the fact to me, our last discussion in our last episode about the health testing. I really need to go and do that because I could be wasting my money on these sups. I could have ample amounts of magnesium. I could have ample amounts of zinc, and I'm just wasting my money on buying these sups, and I don't really need them. So definitely worth doing, even just one or two of those tests that we mentioned last week.
Yep.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more.
And we can't neglect the fact that just eating right, if you can't provide or get supplementation in the form of tablets or whatever, just eating a good diet, like you said before, Smitty, you can get a lot of the nutrients and minerals that we need from a good, healthy diet.
Yep. And on that note, it's a good note to finish on.
Yeah.
So, if you want to get in touch with us, modernancestralman@gmail.com, flick us a message.
Yeah.
Always like to hear from listeners. On that note, see you later, fellas.
Right on. See you, lads.
See you, boys.
Enjoy the weekend.
See you, mate.
Thanks, gents.
Bye now.
See you, boys.
See ya.